On the surface, Sha'ron Cooley McWhite has a good life. She's a teacher, has a loving family and home, but her family carries around a tragic past, one that forever connects them to the largest incident of voting day violence in U.S. history.
And the pain and suffering that we felt from this horrific event 100 years ago was richly a part of who we are.
She's talking about the Ocoee Massacre of 1920, when her great-uncle Julius July Perry was lynched and an unknown number of African Americans were murdered, all because a black man tried to exercise his legal right to vote on Election Day.
The details of how he was killed is very hard for me to share and talk about, but he was killed, senseless.
It's an ugly story, so prepare yourself. Pam Swartz, chief curator at Orange County's Regional History Center, says there are hundreds of versions of what happened on November 2nd, 1920. We do know July Perry's friend tried to vote but was turned away from the polls. That night, a mob of armed white men, possibly including some KKK members, went to Perry's home looking for his friend.
They say there's anywhere from 6 people to 100 who showed up. A riot broke out. There were gunshots fired. At some point, the firing continues. There are actual fires set to these homes.
McWhite says her great-uncle Perry was captured, taken to jail, and the next day lynched and hanged.
It's the unthinkable. But the most important part is not how he was killed, it's why he was killed. That's what we need to talk about.
The general idea is that this was all to make sure that African Americans were not getting out to vote. It was to take land from people who were rising to prominence, who were creating a life for themselves.
Some newspaper headlines in 1920 focusing on 2 white men who were murdered during the riots instead of the 6 to 60 African Americans who were reportedly murdered. Their homes and churches burned to the ground, part of the white population intent on driving out the some 250 black people who were living there.
By 1930, there are only 2 people listed on the census, and they were both listed as single individuals who are servants in Ocoee.
It would take some 50 years before African Americans moved back to Ocoee. McWhite says she can see the city is making progress in diversity, but believes as a country we're still dealing with voting issues.
There are so many of us still have that fear. The fear that if we do vote, the consequences, the fear of standing for what's right, how it would affect our family members.
When it comes to honoring her great-uncle's legacy, McWhite says there's been progress. In 2018, Ocoee officials issued a proclamation acknowledging its dark past. There's a monument at the hallowed ground in Ocoee, reportedly a site of an African-American cemetery. There's also a new sign in downtown Orlando honoring July Perry. The Orange County History Center is working on a special exhibit this year to commemorate the 100th year since the riots. McWhite says it's all needed so the community can continue to heal.
That's a part of healing, when we can communicate about the things in life that hurts us the most.
In Ocoee, Sydney Cameron, Fox 35 News.